It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
We're taught that anger creates monsters, but The Godfather shows something far more unsettling. The man who never shows emotion becomes the one who decides everyone else's fate. Michael Corleone starts as the one who doesn't belong, the war hero, the college boy, the son who sits at the family table but refuses the family business. He's the calm, rational outsider who insists he's different, that he won't be like his father, that violence and loyalty and blood aren't his inheritance. But beneath that distance is something quieter, a fear of losing himself, a fear that if he feels too much, he'll be consumed by the chaos his family lives in. So he does what many people do when the world feels overwhelming. He controls what he can, his tone, his posture, his reactions. He replaces vulnerability with discipline, exposure with restraint, and slowly, without realizing it, he trades one identity for another. This isn't a crime story. It's a psychological descent, a study of what happens when control becomes the only thing a person trusts, when feelings are treated as weaknesses to be managed rather than signals to be understood. Michael Corleone doesn't lose himself to passion. He loses himself to the illusion that he never needed to feel at all. In the beginning, Michael is defined by what he isn't. He isn't hot-headed like Sonny. He isn't sentimental like his father. He's disciplined, detached, morally distinct. He believes he can witness his family's world without being absorbed by it. His core psychological posture is built on emotional restraint. He doesn't erupt. He doesn't expose what he feels, because exposure feels like weakness. So restraint becomes his armor. Silence becomes his language. Control becomes the foundation of his identity. But underneath that composure is an internal conflict he doesn't fully acknowledge. Belonging versus autonomy, loyalty versus self-preservation, the pull of family against the need to be separate. And the longer he resists, the more brittle his boundaries become. The seed of transformation is already planted in the quiet belief that control feels safer than emotional exposure, that if he never lets himself be vulnerable, he'll never be hurt. He doesn't realize yet that control isn't protection, it's a cage. Suppression doesn't mean someone feels nothing. It means feelings are managed through order, logic, and distance. Michael doesn't stop caring, he stops showing it. And in that gap between feeling and expression, something shifts. At the core are three internal forces. First, a fear of emotional chaos. Michael has watched emotion destroy people. Sonny's rage got him killed. Emotion, in Michael's mind, is dangerous, so he builds walls against it. Second, a need for predictability. The world Michael enters is violent, unstable, full of betrayal. The only way to survive is to impose order, to think 3 moves ahead. Control becomes his anchor. Third, an identity built around composure. Michael defines himself by what he doesn't do. He doesn't lose his temper. He doesn't break down. Composure becomes proof of strength. To feel openly would be to betray that identity. So control becomes a coping mechanism. Decisions replace dialogue. Strategy replaces feeling. He stops asking himself what he wants or fears. He asks only what makes sense, what protects the family, what maintains power. And with every choice made from that place, the distance between Michael and his own inner life widens. The suppressed emotion doesn't disappear. It hardens into something cold and irreversible. Michael's restraint doesn't stay neutral. It becomes emotional isolation. He stops confiding, stops trusting, stops letting anyone close enough to see the cost. His wife becomes a stranger. His brother becomes a problem to be solved. Because warmth requires vulnerability, and vulnerability in Michael's calculus is suicide. His decision-making becomes colder, more absolute, less reversible. Every choice is final. Every betrayal is met with elimination. There's no room for ambiguity, no tolerance for emotion that might complicate the logic. He doesn't deliberate, he decides, and once the decision is made, there's no going back. The psychological costs pile up quietly. First, the loss of empathy. Michael stops seeing people as complex and human. He sees them as loyal or disloyal, useful or expendable. Relationships are reduced to function. Love becomes a calculation of risk. Second, the inability to tolerate ambiguity. Everything must be clear, certain, controlled. Gray areas become threats. So Michael imposes clarity through force, through decisive action, through eliminating anyone who introduces doubt. Third, relationships reduce to loyalty tests. Michael stops asking if someone loves him, he asks only if they'll obey. Trust is replaced by surveillance. His wife isn't a partner, she's either complicit or a problem. His brother isn't family, he's either loyal or a liability. Control creates authority, it builds empires, it commands respect, but it erodes humanity. Until the man who wanted to stay separate from his family's darkness becomes the darkest thing in it. Emotional control is not the same as emotional health. You can master your reactions, keep your voice steady, never let anyone see you break, and still be driven entirely by fear, grief, and unprocessed pain. The absence of visible emotion doesn't mean emotion isn't there. It just means it's underground, shaping decisions from a place you can't see. People who never show emotion may still be driven by it unconsciously. The man who never raises his voice might be terrified of losing control. The leader who seems unshakable might be making every decision from deep, unacknowledged fear. Suppression doesn't heal, it redirects. Power feels safest when vulnerability feels dangerous. When you've been hurt or betrayed, the instinct is to protect yourself by never being exposed again. Control is the most seductive form of protection, but that safety is an illusion. The longer feelings are avoided, the more extreme decisions must become to maintain control. Michael doesn't start by killing his brother. He starts by refusing to feel the grief of losing his father, the fear of inheriting a violent empire, the loneliness of becoming someone he didn't want to be. Because those feelings have no outlet, they harden into a logic that justifies anything. Here's the simple truth. Control can protect you from pain, but it slowly replaces connection. It keeps you safe from being hurt, but it also keeps you safe from being known. And eventually, the wall you build to keep pain out becomes the wall that keeps everything else out too. The most dangerous leaders are not the angry ones. Anger is visible. The most dangerous are the ones who never seem to feel at all. The ones who speak softly, decide calmly, and move with the precision of someone who's convinced emotion is weakness, because those are the people who've learned to mistake control for strength. So ask yourself, where in your life is control masking fear? Where are you staying measured not because you're calm, but because you're afraid of what might happen if you let yourself be vulnerable? Michael Corleone's tragedy isn't that he became his father, it's that he became something worse, a man who won every battle and lost every connection. A man who controlled everything and felt nothing. Don't let control become the thing that protects you from life. Let it be the thing that helps you live it.